Gaslighting is where someone makes you feel like your perception of reality is false. That is a simple answer, but it is also where someone is undermining you constantly with your views, your beliefs, and your perception of what they're doing. So when someone's gaslighting you, a lot of the time, what it is that there's been an experience or a word said or some sort of event, and the other person is not going to take responsibility for their actions, words, even their own energy, how they, project energy. Now, what they'll do is if you question them or challenge them or ask them to explain, they'll turn and twist, they'll manipulate everything that's occurring to make you feel like you don't know what's going on, that it increases your sense of self-doubt, like you've done something wrong.
Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nilon.
Welcome, explorers, and thank you for being part of the adventure. Today we're going to talk about gaslighting, which is actually a request from Christy, one of our listeners. She asked, could you explain gaslighting? And I am going to do that, but I'm also going to do self-gaslighting because that causes us a lot of problems. Like and subscribe, and of course, if you've got any questions that you like for the solo cast for me to answer, I'm more than happy to have a look at them. So, Christy, gaslighting is where someone makes you feel like your perception of reality is false. That is a simple answer, but it is also where someone is undermining you constantly with your views, your beliefs, and your perception of what they're doing. So when someone's gaslighting you, a lot of the time, what it is that there's been an experience or a word said or some sort of event, and the other person is not going to take responsibility for their actions, words, even their own energy, how they, project energy. Now, what they'll do is if you question them or challenge them or ask them to explain, they'll turn and twist, they'll manipulate everything that's occurring to make you feel like you don't know what's going on, that it increases your sense of self-doubt, like you've done something wrong, or it'll have you questioning that you are not understanding something. Okay, maybe I missed that. Maybe I am being too sensitive, all those kind of things. So it's someone denying reality and attempting to alter your perception of reality or to alter just your perception. It is emotional manipulation. It's where the person that is gaslighting you is prepared to be completely indifferent. Everyone knows I'm going to use that word. Completely indifferent to how their actions and words are going to affect you. So they are going to manipulate you to be susceptible to what they want you to believe. So you look out and you go, okay, there's a red car that just drove past. And they'll go, no, it was crimson. And you might roll your eyes and go, okay, red, crimson, okay. And then they will want to fight on the minute detail of the colour of the car. And instead of the topic being about the car driving past, it becomes about this minute detail of difference, which is terminology. And what they'll try to do is bamboozle you and make you self-doubt yourself and all those kind of things. They'll take you down the rabbit hole of you ending up feeling like crap about yourself and then feeling that way so you are more submissive to their control and manipulation. Gaslighting is a manipulative tactic that is going to have you feel inferior that will lead to you being more susceptible to their control. And that's why judgment of your character, knowing your triggers, if someone doesn't like to be called silly, just for an example, and that's the word they go to, if they know it's a trigger, then that is gaslighting as well, because they're using their information to work out how to have you self-doubt, self-opposing, and totally confused. Anyone that has had any major experiences with someone who is gaslighting them will know the level of confusion. And by the time you're trying to process your own confusion about what is happening now, that the event that you're talking about no longer becomes relevant. So to give you an example, say a friend said something very nasty to you and embarrassed you, humiliated you in front of a social setting, and then later on you go back and you want to discuss, why did you say that about me in front of everyone, or why did you reveal that? I told you that in confidence, and that really embarrassed me. Their defense mechanism, because it's always a defense mechanism, will be to try and, there's a few ways they'll go, as anyone would know that's experienced it. It might be to go, well, you did this to me. So they'll give you an example of how you did something possibly even worse. And then you'll be going through your brain going, did I do that? When did I do that? I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't my intention. So you start defending your intention, and it becomes, they're now in control of the conversation. They're now telling you it's about this. And that's why, you set the field. You did this to me, so that meant it was okay to do it to you. So they're always trying to put you in a position where you're second guessing yourself. And if that is consistent and constant, it will erode your sense of self. It will cause you to not want to question. It will cause you not to want to say things, to hide, and you'll start appeasing them because you don't want to go through the gaslighting dance. The thing to remember when you're challenging someone or asking, requesting, what you're after is trying to understand what just happened. If they're taking you away from the experience and they're making you feel like you are the problem, it is generally a sign that you're being gaslit. Name calling is actually particularly effective. When someone calls us a name that is putting us down, quite condescending, or downright nasty, our brain will go, why is that person saying that to me? And you will question why they thought it was appropriate to say that to you. So we really personalize things. One of the greatest personal growth, spiritual growth things that you can have is when you try not to take everything so personal. Now, there's a clause in that. You'll find with a lot of the things that come with emotions, it's a very fine line. When you see someone intentionally trying to make you confused, trying to manipulate you, whether it's through name calling or doubting facts, then one of the most important things to do, if you can, because we all get emotionally triggered by people's indifference to us. So when someone's doing that, what you're recognizing is they are indifferent to me. And one of the greatest fears we have is towards indifference. And the reason for that is then if we know that they are prepared to be indifferent, we don't know where their line is. If someone abuses you, they have to be indifferent to how that is going to impact you, how that's going to affect you, right? And it's that willingness to be indifferent to you that causes us to realize these people haven't got boundaries. They haven't got good boundaries. They're not pulling themselves up. They're not saying, oh, I shouldn't treat this person like this. And when you cannot take things personally, you'll recognize that. You'll recognize their indifference. You'll recognize their intent. And you'll know that you could swap you out and put someone else in the same situation with them, and they would act the same way. It's not about who I am. They're revealing what they are prepared to do to manipulate you or to avoid being accountable for the reality of themselves. And it is the indifference that we feel. So when someone's calling us a name that they know that will trigger us, say silly, and we know that's intentional because this person knows that it upsets me because I've already told them. I've already explained this. I've already had this gaslit conversation before. If you, instead of going, oh, are they right? Am I silly? If you instead go, hang on, take me out of the equation, ask the same question, this person's going to respond the same way. Potentially if they know the other person's trigger, it might be idiot. It might be some other form of put down. When you can get to that stage, your eyes are going to be open to the truth of that person. Now, there's a very funny thing which leads us into self-gaslighting. The reason why we don't like to do that is that we fear, especially if this is a partner or a family member or someone we feel close to or someone we want to be close to or someone that we have to invest in. So if this is a boss, and we're thinking, well, this is, my ticket to my finances, if there's a need to this person, we're going to be less inclined to really look at them. And a lot of time we don't like to lose relationships that we've invested in. So we struggle to really look at the truth of them. And instead, we pull it in on ourselves and then we start gaslighting ourselves. I am stupid. I am silly. I should have known better. And we start turning that on, and then we become the person who's gaslighting ourselves. And that is extremely sad and very dangerous for our sense of self-worth. Because when we're prepared to put ourselves down to try and appease another person, to keep that person in the illusion that we're trying to have them in. I'll give you an example because it's actually quite complex how it works. Say we'll stick with a friend. Say I have a friend and we've had an altercation and I've gone and had a discussion with them and I'm watching them now just gaslight me, trying to confuse me. Everything I say, they got a counteraction. Everything that I'm bringing up, they're going, that's not what happened. Then they're telling me the 15 things that I've done that makes me the bully, makes me the mean person, makes me the insensitive person, whichever way they're trying to attack. And then you're so confused that when you're standing there and you've gone into that form of, oh God, like, have I misread this? Have I overstepped the mark? All the rest of it. We do that because in that moment we decided we don't want to lose the relationship with this person. And when we feel someone's indifference towards us, we believe that if they can be indifferent to us, this is an instinct, then that means we are easily discarded. They can reject us, and we fear rejection. So we try to work out how to fix me so you don't have a problem. The other person doesn't have a problem. And as soon as we do that, we're going to start gaslighting ourselves. We're going to start telling ourselves, we're going to take the negativity that this person has put out. We're going to take the judgment, the criticism, and the manipulation, and we're going to use it against ourselves. As soon as you recognize that, you should recognize that that is part of the result of being gaslit. Right? We can have different opinions. That is not a problem. But we don't have to be disrespectful to one another when we have different opinions. If you're we'll use that scenario with a friend, if you're in that conversation and it's going nowhere, then you decide, is this person the person I want to have a friendship or relationship with? Is this what I am prepared to deal with to have the relationship? And then what you're telling yourself is anytime they do something that you don't like, you have no avenue to discuss this with them. And anyone that's been in a long-term narcissistic relationship, toxic family relationship, all those kind of buzzwords, all those kinds of relationships will know that eventually you stop challenging it. And this is good if you want to tolerate being in this type of relationship, but it's not so great for your self-esteem. And if you are in that kind of relationship and it's a relationship that you can't escape, which happens, families, you may only see them every Christmas, then acknowledge that that's who they are and don't lower yourself to try and compete with them to try to get them to understand your perception. If they have gaslit you, they have told you, I am not interested in your opinion, your perception, or your feelings. I am only interested in securing myself, protecting myself, and I will do it at the expense of you. Know that about them, and then consciously choose to not engage in that kind of conversation with them. And the reason why that's important is when you consciously choose, you're empowering yourself. You may observe that person, and it doesn't necessarily have to be judgment, just observation. And you go, okay, I can see that. If you have to deal with that person, we have, co-parenting and all sorts of things, then don't take it personally. Give yourself a little giggle. I always tell clients, and I do it myself, it's like, give them a scale out of 1 to 10. As far as gaslighting goes, I give you an 8. I think you could have done better in your head, so that what you do is you diffuse the emotional reaction to it. It's like, oh, okay, half, I only put in a half effort there, I'll give you a 5. And what you're doing is diffusing their ability to make you feel bad about yourself. You can recognize someone who's prepared to gaslight you because any type of relationship, again, is that they trivialize your opinion. They make it feel like it's incidental. It doesn't matter. And they're also experts at denial. There goes the red car. Okay, it's a crimson car. Okay, there goes the crimson car. Well, was it? Was it really? You sure it was a car? I don't think it was a car. Yeah, it was a car. No. You think it was a car. You've seen the car, right? So you end up in those conversations where you're, what the? Know that. Recognize that. Don't compete. Don't try and convince the person that their car went past because they already know the car's gone past. So all they're inviting you in, jump on my merry-go-round and let me be the cat and you be the mouse. and I'm going to throw you around and play with you, and we're going to spin around, and then I'm going to throw you out. And then you won't know why you even brought up the car going past. And then when you see that in someone, recognize it for what it is. And even if you don't want to use the word gaslighting, you know what I mean? We've got a lot of buzzwords going on. But if you just look at it and go, oh my God, this person is not even acknowledging that I've got an opinion, right? This person is not prepared to sit down and have a conversation with me. Break it down. Because sometimes what I'm seeing a lot of people with now, and I get it, is they're going, oh my God, that person gaslit me. Oh. And what that does is makes them feel like a real victim to it. And then they feel powerless. But when you actually identify what's happening, okay, that person refuses to have a proper conversation with me. That person is twisting my words. Okay, and what you're doing is you're identifying the behavior. That person refuses to acknowledge the truth, and there's nothing I can do about it. As you identify the behavior, then what you're doing is creating the space to give yourself permission to make a choice about what you want to do about it. Okay, that's where they're at. Walk away. Okay, no, this is important. I need to defend this position. Then know you're defending it against somebody that doesn't care. Know that you are engaging and potentially on their merry-go-round, right? They're not in a shared arena. You're now in their arena. And you are going to experience blame shifting. You're the problem. You're the reason. You're also going to experience contradictions of memories. Now, we all go, oh, maybe it was my memory, but you remember how you felt. You may not remember the exact word. You may not remember the exact time, but you remember the essence of the event and hold true to that. If someone has treated you poorly, and we'll just keep that as a polite way of putting it, then acknowledge that they were prepared to do that. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. You know it's a mistake when someone does something and says, oh, sorry. I was at a function last night and I tapped somebody accidentally and I went, oh, sorry. Now, I had no intention of tapping them. I tapped them with my elbow. That's just the way we were walking. And I said, oh, sorry. Right? I acknowledged that I had no intention to touch that person. Didn't hurt them. It was just they didn't know what was going on. I was like, oh, sorry. Right? So I'm willing to actually acknowledge what happened. And guess what? That's now not a thing. It's not an event. It's just a second. It's nothing. When someone does something and they deny it, contradict your memory, shift the blame onto you, it is now something. That person is showing you they are completely indifferent to you. And it is all for the purpose of creating confusion. And that's why when we start self-gaslighting, when we start telling ourselves a story, and we can do this when we see something and we're not sure. What's going on here? Don't really know. So we fill in the gaps. We can do that and sustain our own self-annihilation. Big word. And the reason why I say that, you only gaslight yourself if you're in avoidance or you're trying to protect denial. And by doing that, we always take ourselves to the negative, even if it's positive. Now, I'm going to explain that. You see a lot of people that will put a positive spin on everything so they don't have to deal with reality. And when you do that, you're actually gaslighting yourself. It may feel better, it may sound better, but it is doing the same form of damage. And when you are trying to always pull to the positive, you're going to become an excuse creator. Oh, they did this because of da 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 da. And you'll tell yourself a story. And when you align to it and it's not true, you've just gaslit yourself. And sometimes when we're trying to recover from abusive relationships, heal our trauma, the positivity works because it gives us a breather, gives us a space. But when it's consistent, it doesn't give you any space. It becomes a gilded cage that locks you in your emotional trauma. And we fear facing the truth of how damaged people are, including ourselves. We're all got some form of trauma. And the people that argue that point, it just means they don't understand themselves. And the reason why I say that is that we've all got forms of emotional baggage that we're carrying around. And trauma is an experience. And if we store it, we're traumatized. So you can have a trauma experience. And if you feel very supported, have a full understanding of it, and you feel it's just an experience. It's like the tapping of that person last night is like, it's just an event. It was terrible. Off you move. It's just something that happened. But if you feel unsupported, you can't process your emotions, and you shift into blaming yourself or believe it's because you're inferior that it happened to you, or whatever belief system that you've got running that holds you in the trauma, then what you'll do is you'll run it through the filter of either trying to avoid being honest about that or to protect your denial of it. If you've suppressed it so far in that you're now protecting your denial of it, that you'll run a faulty filter. And many of us, self included, have caught ourselves out. It's not actually a lie. It's a false filter that we've ran. And when it blows, when we realize the filter drops and we see the truth, we're traumatized again, because it was like we were so far away from reality. And anyone that's gaslighting, whether they're gaslighting you or you're gaslighting yourself, is taking you further away from reality. And sometimes our perception of reality is, I don't know. I don't know what their intention is. And if you can have that level of honesty, instead of having to give yourself an answer, you'll find that your perception of things will change greatly and you'll see things differently. One of the biggest questions I get is gaslighting intentional? And I know I've touched on it before, but it's important to really address it. When people are gaslighting us, they know their intention. They will never reveal it. They will, but not intentionally. Oh God, that sound a bit mixed up? And I'll explain what that means. When they're gaslighting, they're protecting something, right? And their desire is to be manipulative, right? That's their intention. I'm going to manipulate this other person to be susceptible to what I desire as the outcome. And the outcome is just so that I am not held accountable for anything I've ever done. Full stop. But if you listen to them with an observation, instead of absorbing it in, observe, don't absorb. If you listen to them, they'll reveal their intention in the words that they choose, in the way that they frame it. They'll tell you stuff about what they're doing unintentionally. But you have to be in a place of feeling secure within yourself to hear it. And the level of frustration that occurs, there's a little eye roll then, when people are gaslighting you is so great that we lose that foundation. We become more insecure, right? So that's why it's important to acknowledge your self-awareness and to acknowledge your boundaries. I am listening to this as an observation of you, not as a determination of my worth, nor as an appraisal of my perception. And when you can do that, you will see that they reveal their intention. Their manipulation will be on show. If you're in the confusion, it's extremely hard to do that. Don't beat yourself up if you're there, because you came to the conversation or event with the intention to be honest. You might have came with a very loving and caring and nurturing heart, and you were excusing them, thinking this was how you would help them. But that positive self-gaslighting to yourself is what is also making you susceptible to ignoring the reality of the manipulation. When you have been gaslighting yourself for a very long time and trying to make things work that aren't workable, or trying to hold on to relationships that are damaging, you will find that there's a point where you can no longer tolerate the gaslighting. And it's actually not a bad place to be, because that will be the start of you opening your eyes and looking. And a lot of strong people feel that they can cope with it and tolerate it to protect the relationship. And unfortunately, that is not what occurs. There's that slow chipping away at your sense of self. And when you realize that, it can be very heartbreaking to realize that what you've seen, the manipulation, the put downs, was an indicator of where that person is. When you've been in long-term gaslighting, and it's just a natural progression that you will gaslight yourself, and you know what? Self-gaslighting is just self-judgment. And there's not a person on the planet that I've ever met that hasn't got some form of negative self-judgment that they've had to deal with. The big takeaway with gaslighting, and look at it like self-judgment, give yourself permission to say no. I don't deserve that. That's not what I should be doing. And it's not what I should be tolerating. There's no point engaging with someone that's not really engageable. Give yourself permission to acknowledge that. And remember that it is better for you to see the truth of something than to be stuck in the illusion that someone's creating to manipulate you. You've got to give yourself permission to deal with gaslighting, whether it's external or internal. You've got to give yourself permission to value your own self-awareness and to respect honesty and truthfulness. And that way, when you see someone is not presenting that to you, you can tell that is just them, not you. I hope this helps you process and start exploring your perception of your self-gaslighting and anybody that's gaslighting you. So now it's time for Flip the Book. I'm just going to take the first book, which is on the pile, which is Spirituality, Evolution and Awakened Consciousness, and I'm just going to randomly open the page. I've just gone, there's a quote, "Truth instinctively matters to us. I mean, how appropriate is that for gaslighting? So I'll read the following paragraph. When our wants and desires overshadow the significance of truth, we align with the notion that truth is an enemy to our desire for control. That would sum up every gaslighter I've ever known. This notion has allowed our manipulation of our awareness of truth to hurt our relationship with who we naturally are. Truth is our divine essence, which we have at times deceptively denied, so we could create an illusion of control. I love that. It's so fitting for this, it's just so fitting for this episode. Truth instinctively matters to us. I love that because that is what gaslighting does. It attacks our instincts that truth is important, and we want to have conversations where the truth is what we're both striving to understand. Our perception of truth can be different, but if we're both trying to understand each other's perception of it, then we're going to broaden our understanding of whatever the truth of what we've experienced is. And it is how emotionally mature humans should interact. And if someone's not willing, I always say to clients and to myself, by the way, is that there's a platform of truth. And if each person has a foot on that platform, it means they're willing to pull the other foot towards that direction, right? May not understand, may have a conversation, and we are from different spectrums of understanding this. You're on that end, me on this end. But if we both have one foot on the platform of truth, saying we're willing to explore it, then you can have an honest conversation. If you are the only person with a foot on that platform, the other person is telling you they are not willing to explore something to uncover the truth of it. And that is when we see someone gaslighting, they're never going to put a foot on the truth. And if not, they've got their back turned to it because truth isn't serving them. It's their enemy. Try not to let truth be your enemy. Try to let you be the person that will pull your 2 feet onto the platform of truth, even if the person gaslighting you never acknowledges your perception as a truth. Self-awareness is important. Self-reflection is important. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, please like and subscribe.